갈까요?
갈까요? 갈까요?
갈까요?
어디 가요?
한글 만나러!
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Galbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait, did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
Gyeongju, a city that holds 1,000 years of history. The cherished values, preserved over time, have shaped who we are today. Now, through new encounters, we step into a better future. Sustainability, innovation. With the spirit of connection, a new millennium story begins. As APEC and Gyeongju come together. APEC meets Gyeongju.
The handover of living Israeli hostages has begun in Gaza, with nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israel being freed as part of the first phase of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal. The National Assembly launched its first audit of the Lee Jae-myung administration on Monday. Rival parties clashed over the appearance of the Supreme Court's Chief Justice and tariff negotiations with the U.S. on the first day of the over 3-week-long audit. Also Monday, President Lee Jae-myung once again stressed the importance of expanding the power of a culture into new economic growth engines and called on the need for financial reform of K-culture. We begin in the Middle East, where Israeli hostages have been released in exchange for thousands of Palestinian prisoners as part of the first phase of a new ceasefire agreement. We have our Park Kwon-woo on the line to tell us more. Kwon-woo, how has the hostage release been taking place?
Yes, Tammy. So 7 of the 20 living Israeli hostages were released at around 8 a.m. local time on Monday, which is around 2 p.m. Korea time. They were first given to the International Committee of the Red Cross and then to the Israel Defense Forces. The remaining hostages, along with more than 20 bodies of those deceased, are also set to be released later today. In exchange, 250 Palestinian prisoners and more than 1,700 Gaza detainees will be freed after all of the Israeli hostages are released. But high-profile figures, including senior Hamas commanders, were reportedly excluded from the list. The released Israeli hostages have been transported to the Reim military base in southern Israel for initial checkups and to reunite with their families who have been waiting over 2 years for this moment.
I'm so excited. I'm full of happiness, and it's hard to imagine how I feel this moment. Thank you for everyone, all the people here in Israel and around the world that fight with us for this moment.
The hostages will be taken to hospitals for medical checkups afterwards, and Israeli Air Force helicopters are also on standby to airlift those in need of urgent medical care. Monday's hostage release marks the first phase of the truce deal between Israel and Hamas, a deal brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump along with Arab and Turkish representatives that began last Friday. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it's not over yet.
The battle is not over. There are still very serious security challenges ahead. Some of our enemies are trying to recover so they can attack us again.
So, Kanu, what is actually left for a permanent peace deal to be reached? We know U.S. President Donald Trump has arrived in Israel.
Yes, so Trump will be heading to Egypt for a summit hosted with his Egyptian counterpart to discuss U.S. proposed deals and post-war plans on Monday, as there are more things to discuss, including the disarmament of Hamas. The event will be attended by more than 20 world leaders, including British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, although representatives from Israel and Hamas will not participate. Meanwhile, Trump also stopped by Israel around an hour ago, as you mentioned before, to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and address the country's parliament. On his way to Israel, Trump said the war has ended and the ceasefire will hold.
I think people are tired of it. It's been centuries, okay? Not just recent, it's been centuries. I think people are tired of it. Yeah, the ceasefire is going to hold.
And alongside, Trump will be awarded the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor, Israel's highest civilian honor, according to the Israeli Presidential Office, to recognize his efforts in securing the release of the 48 hostages held by Hamas. And that's all I have for you now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Kanu, thank you for that coverage. Now, in the meantime, U.S. President Donald Trump seems to be extending an olive branch to China's Xi Jinping after he threatened to impose higher tariffs on Beijing. Trump said neither he nor Xi Jinping wants their countries to face a recession. Lee Seung-jae reports.
Amid rising concerns that the United States and China could reignite a trade war through ultra-high tariffs and export controls, U.S. President Donald Trump struck a notably softer tone on Sunday. According to Trump, the U.S. does not seek to harm China, but to help it. His remarks came just 2 days after he announced a 100% tariff in response to China's rare earth export controls and hinted at boycotting a face-to-face meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the upcoming APEC summit. Trump also took to Truth Social to note that neither he nor Chinese President Xi Jinping wants a recession. Meanwhile, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance spoke to Fox News on Sunday and expressed hope that Beijing will choose a rational path, stressing that the U.S. president holds far more cards than China. Vance also said he had spoken with Trump over the weekend, noting Trump's appreciation for the relationship with China, but emphasizing the significant leverage Washington holds. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer criticized China's rare earth export controls, revealing that Washington was not notified in advance, despite Beijing's claims. Greer said that Washington learned through public sources and immediately contacted China, but Beijing deferred taking the call. Greer stressed that power plays by China will not be tolerated. Still, Greer left the door open for dialogue, noting that the U.S. has already made working-level contact with China and will wait to see if Beijing is interested in high-level talks to ease tensions. The latest developments suggest Washington is preparing for both pressure and diplomacy, with the next steps likely hinging on China's response ahead of the APEC summit later this month. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, here in South Korea, attention now turns to the National Assembly, where the first audit under the Lee Jae-myung administration began today. Our political correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
The new administration's first National Assembly audit opened Monday, setting the stage for government-wide accountability checks through to November. But the spotlight today was squarely on the judiciary and the political storm surrounding Chief Justice Choide that stems from a controversial Supreme Court ruling which found President Lee guilty of making false claims during his 2022 presidential campaign. Appearing before the Legislation and Judiciary Committee, Cho said summoning judges to testify over their rulings threatens the constitutional independence of the courts.
If judges are made to testify about their rulings simply because they presided over a certain case, it could discourage them from making judgments based on the Constitution, the law, and their conscience, and even lead to decisions swayed by outside pressures.
He added that his attendance followed long-standing custom to deliver opening and closing remarks. But lawmakers were unsatisfied. Ruling Democratic Party leader Chung Chung-le urged the Chief Justice to approach the audit with utmost sincerity and said the audit must uncover alleged interference in President Lee's election law case. Across the aisle, main opposition People Power Party leader Chang Dong-hyuk accused the DP of using the audit for political attacks, vowing instead to expose what he called abuses of political, administrative and judicial power. Meanwhile, economic ministries were also under scrutiny. Trade Minister Kim Jong-kwan warns that Korea's heavy export dependence on specific countries makes it vulnerable to shocks and pledged to diversify export markets and strengthen cooperation with the US, China and Japan. Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chol, for his part, said Seoul must swiftly conclude tariff talks with Washington, confirming he is arranging a meeting with US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this week. As the audit season begins, both ruling and opposition blocs appear determined to use it to press their narratives, one emphasizing reform, the other restraint, with the judiciary caught in the middle of Korea's deepening political divide. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung today presided over a meeting with his aides, getting back to work after the Chuseok holiday. He urged for the speeding up of fiscal and regulatory reforms to boost K-culture, calling it the core of the strength of a nation. Our Presidential Office correspondent Yoon Jung-min has more.
Expanding the power of culture into new economic growth engines. That's what topped the agenda as President Lee Jae-myung presided over a weekly meeting with his senior aides upon returning to work after a long Chuseok holiday.
새로운 21세기 국제사회에서는 문화가 국가의 국격, 경쟁력, 국력의 핵심이라고 생각합니다.
Noting the growing presence of K-culture on the world stage, the president called for the need to create a comprehensive set of measures that can encompass the cultural ecosystem, adding that the notion of culture goes beyond music and art to dramas, food and beauty industries, and even democracy.
문화 콘텐츠 기반 확충에 필요한 재정이나 또 세제, 규제 측면에서 혁신의 속도를 내야 되겠습니다. 그리고 연계산업과의 시너지 효과를 높일 수단을 다양하게 강구해 봐야 되겠습니다.
The focus was also on ways to strengthen the social safety net for artists, as called upon by President Lee. Monday's discussions were a reflection of Lee's policy priorities on taking care of people's livelihoods in the face of a tug-of-war trade talks with the U.S., as well as intensifying global uncertainties over the fresh rivalry between the U.S. and China.
대내외 여건이 어렵긴 하지만 바람이 거칠수록 또 연이 높이 나는 원리도 생각해 봐야 되겠습니다. 지금 우리가 처한 위기를 국민의 삶을 개선하는 새로운 기회로 만들 수 있도록 주권자 제1의 공복으로서 국가 역량을 단단하게 모아 나가야 되겠습니다.
Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korean police are stepping up efforts to combat the string of crimes targeting Korean nationals in Cambodia, following the shocking death of a Korean college student who was allegedly tortured to death. Pyeongyang reports.
A Korean university student surnamed Park was found dead near Bokor Mountain in Cambodia's Gangwon-do Province in early August, in what authorities believe was a case of torture and murder. Another Korean national who was held captive at the same site said Park had been beaten so severely he couldn't walk or breathe. His death certificate listed extreme pain caused by torture as the cause of death. The case has sparked public outrage in South Korea, leading to growing calls for tighter protection for citizens overseas and stronger crackdowns on transnational crime groups. In response, the Korean National Police Agency announced Sunday it will hold a bilateral meeting with Cambodian police in Seoul on October 23rd to establish a Korean desk, allowing Korean officers to work directly with local law enforcement. The system is expected to improve coordination in cases involving organized multinational crime groups. Police also plan to strengthen cooperation through a multinational task force within the year, targeting cross-border organized crime. Additionally, President Lee Jae-myung has instructed the Foreign Ministry to make every effort to protect South Korean citizens in response to the recent string of crimes in Cambodia. Meanwhile, new allegations have emerged about the suspects behind Park's murder. Yonhap News Agency reports that a Chinese national identified as Lee, one of the main suspects, is also suspected of involvement in the 2023 Gangnam drug-laced beverage case that targeted students in Seoul. A Korean civic group following the Cambodia case claimed Lee had a prior drug record and served as a distributor in that earlier case. The investigation is ongoing, with South Korean and Cambodian authorities working to track down the remaining suspect and broaden joint efforts against transnational criminal networks. Pyongyang, Arirang News.
After celebrations marking the 80th founding anniversary of the Workers' Party, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un expressed gratitude for those who helped organize the events and visited Kumsusan Palace of the Sun. Our Kim Bo-kyung has the details.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, the family mausoleum, to solidify internal unity. According to the regime's Korean Central News Agency on Monday, Kim visited the site on the previous day to dedicate the glory of having celebrated the 80th founding anniversary of the Workers' Party of Korea in such a grand manner. Wearing a black leather jacket, he was quoted to have said the regime's high prestige it enjoys today cannot be thought separately from the great leader and general. The visit comes after Kim watched a mass gymnasium and art performance with people who helped to organize recent celebrations, including a military parade on October 10th. While touting the celebrations as a truly splendid grand political and cultural festival, he underlined that thanks to participants playing their role perfectly, the events could show off the regime's cultural side and its mightiness. One expert says the party's founding anniversary celebrations must have been a proud moment for the regime, as high-ranking foreign dignitaries such as Chinese Premier Li Chang, Russia's deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev, and Vietnamese leader Do Lam were present.
Not only Kim Jong-un, but also North Korea's internal elites and citizens have never before experienced such an elevated status of the regime. This is the first time they have successfully hosted such a large-scale event with foreign guests from not only China, Russia, but also ASEAN countries.
At the military parade on Friday night, the regime showcased the newly developed Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time as well, along with other new weapons.
The Hwasong-20 mainly aimed to show off solid fuel technology and multiple warhead capability, sending a clear message to the U.S. By proving it can strike the U.S. mainland, North Korea boosted both its deterrence and bargaining power.
Dubbed the most powerful nuclear strategic weapons system by KCNA, Kim, in his speech during the parade, reportedly said the regime's army should continue to grow into an invincible entity. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korean power plant equipment manufacturer Doosan Enerbility has secured its first gas turbine export contract, under which it will deliver two 380-megawatt turbines to an undisclosed major U.S. tech firm by the end of next year. This marks the first time the company has struck a deal to export its gas turbines overseas. In 2019, Doosan Enerbility became the 5th company in the world to secure gas turbine technology through a joint domestic industry academic cooperation. Now, according to the company, the surge in power demand from data centers, driven by the rise of AI use, was behind the overseas order. South Korea's Jeollabuk-do Province has been working to host the 2036 Summer Olympics. As part of its efforts to secure the bid, a delegation from the province visited Zimbabwe, the home country of the President of the IOC. Our Cha Young-kyung has more.
Bulawayo is the second city of Zimbabwe, a landlocked country on the African continent. Bulawayo was the first destination for the country's first K-Festival, where visitors could make their own traditional Korean items, such as hats and fans.
Oh, I really love this event. As a person who loves Korean culture.
Just like the Experience Zone, the concert hall also proved popular. The crowd was excited to hear the 2012 hit Gangnam Style, and went wild when the trending hit K-pop Demon Hunters OST came on. Even though the traditional performances like pansori and samulnori might have been unfamiliar, the African audience responded with great enthusiasm.
Beautiful, exciting, we really enjoyed it, and we wish that this performance can continue as having the festival in Bulawayo here in Zimbabwe again. Thank you. Kamsahamnida.
Korea Festival 2025 continued the next day in Harare, the capital and largest city of Zimbabwe. This time, the venue was the Korean ambassador's residence, and the main guests were diplomats from various countries, as well as influential figures from Zimbabwe's political, social, and sports sectors.
Appreciate and have seen how great the traditional sound of South Korea through its arts, through its music, and through its dance. It has been an amazing.
Jeollabuk-do Province, which has announced its bid to host the 2036 Summer Olympics, aims to make the Olympics a cultural event. The delegation from Jeollabuk-do Province made the long journey all the way to Africa, since Zimbabwe is the homeland of the newly elected president of the International Olympic Committee, Kirsty Coventry. Cha Young-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In France, newly reappointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has announced a new government, his second such in a week, as he tries to steady the country after days of political chaos and rebuild confidence in France's economy. The 39-year-old centrist and ally of President Emmanuel Macron presented the cabinet on Sunday, a mix of Macron's loyalists, moderate conservatives, and figures from outside politics. Lecornu was reappointed on Friday after resigning earlier in the week, after his first government collapsed within hours of its formation. The new cabinet faces a fractured parliament where Macron's centrist bloc has lost its majority. The right-wing National Rally is demanding new elections, while the left-wing France Unbowed wants the president to resign. Economists say Lecornu's first test will be delivering a credible 2026 budget to ease market jitters as France's debt climbs above 110% of GDP. Analysts warn that without stability, investor confidence could erode further across Europe. In the United States, police in South Carolina are searching for a gunman who killed 4 people and injured at least 20 others after opening fire at a crowded bar on St. Helena Island, about 40 kilometers south of Charleston. The shooting happened around 2 a.m. Sunday at a local bar. Witnesses say a fight broke out before the subject started firing indiscriminately. According to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, several victims remain in critical condition. U.S. Representative Nancy Mace took to social media to say she was, quote, completely heartbroken by the shooting. Gun control advocates say it underscores America's unrelenting gun violence crisis, with more than 500 mass shootings recorded this year. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has warned that more layoffs are coming if the government shutdown continues, saying, quote, "The longer this goes on, the deeper the cuts will be." The shutdown, now in its third week, has left hundreds of thousands without pay and forced thousands of federal layoffs, including at the CDC. Officials later reinstated about 700 workers after they said some notices were sent in error. Meanwhile, the standoff began on October 1st over health insurance subsidies in the budget. Oscar-winning actress Diane Keaton has died aged 79. According to People magazine, the star of Annie Hall, the movie for which she won the Oscar for Best Actress in 1978, died in California on Sunday. A spokesperson for her family said there were no further details, but asked for privacy. Keaton also starred in a range of Hollywood classics in a career spanning 5 decades, from The Godfather to Something's Gotta Give. Known for her trademark hats, men's suits, and witty dialogue delivery, she brought both warmth and quirk to the screen. Tributes are pouring in from across Hollywood, including from former co-star Goldie Hawn, who took to social media to say, quote, "You've left us with a trail of fairy dust filled with particles of light and memories beyond imagination." Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It has been raining in most parts of the country today. This rain will continue until tomorrow. As much as 120 millimeters of heavy rain will be concentrated in the eastern parts of Gangwon-do Province, and more than 80 millimeters will be concentrated on the east coast and mountainous areas in the northern parts of Gyeongsang-do Province. Along the east coast, there will be sudden strong winds of around 15 meters per second. In addition, the waves will be high and rough on the East Sea. Please pay attention to safety reports. Tomorrow morning's Seoul will start off at 15 degrees, Daejeon and Gyeongju at 18 degrees. Daily highs will go up to 20 degrees in Seoul, 26 degrees in Jeju. There will be frequent rainy days across the country throughout this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have at this hour. We will be back later at 8 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 프릭스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길, 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the status UN summit. A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
Leader Kim Jong-un showed off a new intercontinental ballistic missile at a massive military parade attended by high-level officials from China, Russia and Vietnam. Has Pyongyang's power reached new heights? Stay tuned for Press Perspective today. Welcome to Press Perspective. It's Monday, October 13th here in Seoul. I'm Oh Soo-young filling in for Min Sun-hee. North Korea began the weekend with a massive military parade celebrating the 80th anniversary of its ruling Workers' Party, again held in the evening to maximise the optics. The pouring rain didn't dampen the disturbing display of new nuclear-capable weapons and the usual troop formations observed by high-ranking foreign dignitaries. For more, I have Seoul-based journalist Mr. Rafael Rashid here in the studio. Rafael, good to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I also have Professor Pan Gu-ju from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy joining us virtually. Professor Pan, it's always a pleasure.
Hello, good to be with you.
Well, let's get cracking first with you, Raphael. Now, let's start with what's been disclosed by North Korean state media about this massive military parade that happened over the weekend.
Sure. North Korea's state media, I think, provided quite extensive coverage of what it's called a major military parade held late on Friday night at Kim Il-sung Square in Pyongyang, and this marked the 80th anniversary or the founding anniversary of the Workers' Party of Korea in North Korea. Kim Jong-un attended and delivered a speech at the event, which featured both marching troops from various services of the armed forces and what the local media or state media described as columns of ultra-modern hardware. And the parade included symbolic columns or these marching troops representing different historical periods, from the anti-Japanese war units to guards from the arduous march era of the late 90s, alongside current frontline troops and special forces and, of course, strategic units. I think the kind of ceremonial aspect of the parade was quite elaborate. I mean, it was quite a spectacle to watch for anyone watching. There was a 21-gun salute, and Kim reviewed colors from combined units at all levels of the Korean People's Army. The parade showcased a wide range of forces, again, from corpses defending Pyongyang, and coastal areas to tank divisions. We saw special operations units and even troops from military academies. So I think there's quite a lot on display. And Kim Jong-un himself welcomed what the reports described as guests from all walks of life and dear friends from different countries, including party and government officials and VIPs from various nations. Of course, China and Russia were present. So overall, this presented, I guess this was presented by the DPRK or North Korea both as a kind of celebration of the party's founding, and also a demonstration of what they term as the country's self-defensive national kind of defense capabilities that have already steadily bolstered up despite international pressure. So I guess finally Kim was basically reaffirming that North Korea is here and not going anywhere.
Right, so Kim Jong-un, he took great pains to show pretty much everything he has. And now, North Korea is, of course, obsessed with 5th year, 10th year anniversaries. And the 75th year anniversary of the Workers' Party was during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. So Friday's 80th anniversary celebration was a rather massive event, especially for Kim Jong-un, who has now been in power for about 14 years. What did you make of the scale and significance of this year's parade compared to previous years?
Well, this parade was big in scale, and strategic weapons were also unveiled, which included the most enhanced ICBM Hwasong-20. However, massive troops had been mobilized, and new strategic weapons had been revealed in previous parades as well. In this sense, it is hard to say that the scale in this parade was much greater, and it was much more significant than previous parades. Meanwhile, there were something that made this parade noteworthy and differentiated compared to previous ones. Something differentiated in this 80-year anniversary parade can be explained by 3 dimensions. First, the inclusion of the troops deployed overseas to support Russia. Second, the enhanced delegations from other countries. And third, the exclusion of Kim Ju-ae, Kim Jong-un's daughter, from North Korea's media. First of all, the troops dispatched on the Eurasian battlefield to support Russia were included in this parade formation. The show of overseas troops was intended to bolster its strategic deal with Russia in a situation where Medvedev was present. Moreover, it was aimed at showing its expanding missions and upgrading its international standing to the world. Second, North Korea was diplomatically successful in the sense that foreign guests participated in this event on an unprecedented scale. 2 national leaders from Vietnam and Laos visited Pyongyang, and more importantly, the second-ranked persons from China and Russia attended this parade. In addition, various delegations from Mexico, Iran, Venezuela, and etc. were there in the parade. Technically, the military parade is an internal event, but the unprecedented scale of attendance by foreign guests allowed this event to rise to a multilateral diplomatic event, which was hosted by North Korea. Third, regarding Kim Joo-ae, when recent events were taken into consideration, she was supposed to be there in this event. However, unexpectedly, her picture was not shown in North Korean media. No show of Kim Joo-ae was differentiated from her appearance in the 2023 parade. So, the why question should be raised. What North Korea attempts for Kim Joo-ae not to stand out seems to be made as part of diplomatic risk management. If Kim Joo-ae appears to be at the stage, China and Russia could be concerned that they would be taken advantage of by North Korea in an effort to consolidate the political power succession system. So North Korea seems to focus on risk management, and by doing so, it attempts to differentiate between internal politics and international politics.
Right, so there were various interesting aspects to the parade, the flashy weapons, the high-profile guests, and the non-appearance of Kim Jong-un's teenage daughter. Raphael, which aspect was the headline maker for you?
You know, I think for me, it's the timing. I mean, of course, this is the 80th anniversary, so we couldn't have changed the date per se. But I do think the timing and symbolism really stood out. This is a massive military display that comes at a time or a moment when the Lee Jae-myung government or administration has been proactively taking measures or kind of extending olive branches to Pyongyang. And just last month, in his General Assembly speech at the United Nations, President Lee Jae-myung pledged to respect North Korea's system and ruled out unification by absorption or any kind of hostilities. And then again, we saw Seoul suspending loudspeaker broadcasts and taking other maybe smaller confidence-building measures. Yet here we have North Korea responding with its biggest military parade in years, basically projecting this image of complete self-sufficiency. And I think the broader pattern is, I guess, equally telling. We have Kim Jong-un stood alongside Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin at the Beijing Victory Day celebration last month. And this was the first time that we saw the 3 leaders of these 3 nations kind of coming together since 1959. And then there's been, of course, intensive kind of shuttle diplomacy between Russia and China, whilst Pyongyang has been completely ignoring Seoul's outreach. So some foreign media have noted how basically Kim is shedding his isolated pariah sort of image and positioning himself as something that they're calling kind of an anti-Western coalition. Some analysts are describing North Korea's strategy as Ando Kyung-jung, so that's the security from Russia, economy from China, essentially building a kind of support structure that completely bypasses Seoul and Washington. So whilst South Korea is basically saying, you know, we're here, we want to talk, North Korea is staging these kind of grand, well, at least this grand military spectacle and consolidating alternative partnerships in the region. So I think the message is clear. Pyongyang believes it doesn't need engagement with Seoul or Washington at the moment, at least at this point in time. So I think maybe this kind of disconnect between Seoul's outreached hand and Pyongyang's kind of clenched fist, I think that is perhaps the real headline at the moment.
Right, and of course we have to dig into the diplomatic implications in a bit. But first, Kyuju, the most closely watched aspect among some media was whether North Korea would unveil any new strategic weapons, and indeed it did. The Hwasong-11 hypersonic and Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missiles were spotted in footage of the event. What do these weapons signify about North Korea's capabilities and the level of threat it presents?
First of all, regarding the Hwasong-20 ICBM, North Korea introduced these missiles as the most powerful strategic nuclear weapons. Technically, the Hwasong-20 ICBM seems to be upgraded in terms of firing range and the capability to equip nuclear warheads compared to the Hwasong-19 ICBM. It means that North Korea's capability to target U.S. homeland is more advanced, and its ICBMs are more threatening to the United States. In particular, North Korea could think that the enhanced ICBM capability is advantageous not only operationally, but also strategically, because this enhanced ICBM capability could press the ROK-US alliance to decouple in terms of real functions of extended deterrence. Second, the Hwasong-11 hypersonic short-range ballistic missiles are aimed at targeting South Korea. The Hwasong-11 hypersonic SRBM was upgraded from the KN-23 missiles, which were used to target the South Korean military. To top it up, when North Korea fires the Hwasong-11 hypersonic SRBM, long-range artillery shells, and hypersonic cruise missiles all at once, South Korea finds it hard to defend itself. To put it another way, the Hwasong-11 hypersonic SRBMs could weaken the Korea-tailored three-axis system. So the ROK military is in a situation where it needs to significantly upgrade the Korea-tailored three-axis system by including the new concepts like a seaborne kill chain and maritime missile defense. All in all, the new weapons that were spotted in this parade pose more challenges to South Korea's defense capability and the ROK-US combined operations to deter North Korean nukes.
Right, and Kyuju, what was also fascinating about this year's military parade, as both you and Raphael mentioned, was the high-ranking Russian and Chinese officials who showed up at the parade. So what did you make of this? Do you think Kim Jong-un is actually gaining real diplomatic currency here?
To be honest with you, we need to closely watch how North Korea has shifted its external strategy. Its strategy has been converting from passivity to activity and from defense to offense. I define this assertive posture as a hyper strategy where North Korea behaves like a quasi-great power in specific areas, including diplomacy. In this line of effort, North Korea is eager to upgrade its international standing to a robust diplomatic power, spurred by its nuclear armament. To that end, it is clear that North Korea tried hard to attract more foreign guests for this parade. In particular, the attendance of high-ranking officials from China and Russia mattered because they are North Korea's allies. In fact, as you are well aware, the fact that second-ranking officials from both China and Russia participate in this parade is a remarkable diplomatic success from the viewpoint of North Korea. In this sense, Kim Jong-un seems to evaluate this parade as a quite successful achievement in gaining real diplomatic clout. In more detail, Kim Jong-un made diplomatic achievements in two ways. First, hosting the multilateral diplomatic event, and second, playing a leading role in initiating the trilateral cooperation between North Korea, China, and Russia. Kim Jong-un was successful in making this parade serve as an opportunity for functioning as a multilateral diplomatic event, similar to the 80th anniversary parade of World Victory, which was hosted by China on 3 September 2025. Moreover, Kim Jong-un made this parade a stepping stone for the trilateral cooperation to function more substantially.
I see, and Raphael, I want your thoughts on this as well. Do you think Kim Jong-un is getting more confident in his exposure to global media in asserting his nuclear capabilities? And do you think that really has a danger of giving him the kind of recognition that he so desires?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Professor Ban and this kind of assertive strategy that Kim Jong-un is pursuing. And I think this kind of media strategy is also quite deliberate. When he traveled to Beijing just last month for the Victory Day parade, I mean, these images were broadcast around the world. It was live streamed essentially around the world, and normally we would kind of see Kim Jong-un or news coming out after the event has actually happened, and state media have kind of done their job to portray him in whatever way they want. But here it was completely, out there for all to see. And I think foreign media, of course, were picking up on this in real time. Some media describe the image of Xi, Putin, and Kim standing together as, again, demonstrating this unprecedented anti-Western solidarity. And some also noted that this gave Kim an unprecedented opportunity to gain kind of tacit support for his nuclear weapons while expanding his diplomatic network, however small that may be. I guess this is, for Kim at least, he can go back home and present this domestically, or present himself domestically as a kind of world leader, a world political leader, kind of similar to how he appeared during the Trump summit several years ago. Of course, there is a risk in a way. When we give Kim these kind of platforms, some might argue that standing among kind of different world leaders broadcast globally, some might argue that we're essentially normalizing him as a legitimate head of state. And then it would, again, feed into the domestic narrative that North Korea is a respected kind of nuclear power rather than being scrutinized internationally. But of course, I think ignoring him entirely, I don't think is an option either. The nuclear program is real, the missiles are real. Pretending he doesn't exist won't make those threats disappear overnight. So I think that the challenge is kind of engaging without conferring undue legitimacy. I guess what's different now compared to 2018 or 2019 is that Kim isn't necessarily seeking validation primarily from Washington anymore. At least that's what it seems for the time being. He's basically building legitimacy through Beijing and Moscow instead. So I think this makes him quite confident, not less. And he's, again, secured these different sources of recognition and support, which I think means that he can afford to be more brazen when it comes to dealing with other issues or even interacting with South Korea in the way that it is, or rather not responding at the moment to Seoul's olive branch.
Right, so we're seeing new levels of brazenness from Kim Jong-un. And Kyuju, what was your takeaway from Kim Jong-un's message? He didn't mention South Korea or the United States, despite having indicated that he's ready to talk with US President Donald Trump. Why?
As you noted, Kim Jong-un did not directly mention South Korea and the United States, which is beyond expectations. I would say that the reason behind no direct messages is that, first of all, he did not want to make this event isolated on the Korean Peninsula, but hoped to make it expanded diplomatic event. In addition, as of right now, North Korea is reluctant to define South Korea as its counterpart under the new posture of the hostile two-states policy. Furthermore, North Korea does not want to sit at the negotiation table with the United States right at the moment. That explains why Kim Jong-un did not mention South Korea, the United States, directly in his speech. But at the same time, second, Kim Jong-un seems to try to leave some room for both the United States and South Korea. Earlier, Kim Jong-un mentioned that there is no reason why he should stay away from talking with Trump if denuclearization is not on the table. In this sense, Kim Jong-un seems to be preparing for any possibility of Kim Jong-un-Trump summit in a sense, although it would not be easy at all. Regarding South Korea, Kim Jong-un mentioned that North Korea deals with the most hostile country while considering South Korea. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un did not mention South Korea directly. What is the reason behind this calculation? Kim Jong-un seems to test new policies by the the ROC government, such as the E&D initiative. In a nutshell, strategic calculations are functioning behind his no direct messages toward South Korea and the United States.
And Raphael, of course, South Korea is hosting the APEC meetings in Gyeongju later this month. And are you betting on an inter-Korean border meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will be easy, as Professor Ban just mentioned, but at the same time, I do think anything is possible with Trump. I think that's at least definitely the most certain thing that we know at the moment. The relationship between Trump and Kim isn't dead, and even Trump's White House recently stated that, you know, Trump remains open to talking to Kim Jong-un without preconditions. And again, as Professor Ban just mentioned, Kim also reciprocated by saying that he had good memories of Trump, and there was no reason not to face each other so long as the White House or Trump basically drops this denuclearization talk. So I think the groundwork exists for such a meeting, and I think Trump might put out some signals on social media perhaps to say that he's willing to meet tomorrow at Panmunjom, who knows. So I think it's definitely a possibility, but we simply don't know yet.
Right, and as you said, anything is possible with President Trump, so we'll have to wait and see until later this month to see whether this very momentous meeting will happen. And that's where we'll have to wrap up today for this edition of Press Perspective. Thank you very much for watching. Tune in at the same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.